How should Christians be responding to SNAP and EBT benefits running out for 42 million Americans? So, as you guys know, due to the ongoing government shutdown, SNAP and EBT benefits have ran out as of November 1st. And this means a good amount of Americans might be going hungry if the state doesn't step in, but especially if the church doesn't do its job and step in. So, one thing the church needs to do is wake up and realize that it shouldn't necessarily be the government's job to control who they can feed and on what terms, because when they control that, they can control who they starve and on what terms. And I think that is something the church has handed over to the government because of our laziness and complacency. But we should take that back and realize, no, it is our job to take care of the poor and the homeless. When we look at scripture, let's look at James chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. In the ESV, it says, "What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, be warmed and filled,' without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead." And then also in Galatians chapter 2, verse 10, in that chapter, we see Paul going to church leaders and making sure the gospel he's preaching is in line and he's not running his race in vain. And then those leaders recognize that God has sanctioned him to preach the gospel to the Gentiles. And they also tell him, though, to not remember the poor, the very thing I was eager to do. So we see that in the early church, they knew it was their job to feed and help the homeless and the poor. And remember, especially in our day and age, it doesn't matter who the person voted for, and it doesn't matter their personality. This is to be an expression and a living out of our faith. And the actions that flow from our faith should not be dependent upon what somebody else's faith and what their character is. See, in Romans chapter 12, verse 20, it says, "If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink." See, it doesn't matter if we don't politically or personally agree with them, we are still called to show Christ-like compassion, because feeding the hungry is not an act of agreement, but an act of grace. So how can we as Christians take personal action? Well, one is go out to the homeless communities. Obviously, you should go with somebody and just take food and take encouragement. 2 is start or support food drives. 3 is volunteer at soup kitchens or outreach ministries. And then 4, and I think this one is the most important, is involve your local church and make it a community effort. But at its core, I think it's most important to remember that feeding the homeless and the poor is important. But if you're not providing them and preaching the bread of life to them, the spiritual bread, the spiritual food, this is basically in vain. It means nothing. So meeting physical needs is important, but it goes hand in hand with sharing and spreading the gospel.